Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Oh, welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're in for a treat. We're going to be having a conversation about something that we often don't consider. Oftentimes we talk about bodies on here and what your body wants, but sometimes we don't realize that there's a little conflict that can occur between what your mind is asking for and what your body is asking for. So we'll be talking about that in this show. If you are brand new to this station, the Inspired Choices Network station, you're going to find so many great shows available on the station. If you want to learn anything from butchery to alchemy, it's all on here, including all things to do with bodies, money, health, relationships. Literally, I don't think there's a topic you know what? There is a topic we haven't covered: sports. I don't think we have anybody who does podcasts on sports. Maybe we need that. Maybe that's what we need coming up. Or maybe we've had that and it was before I was part of it. So many different shows, thousands of shows to choose from. And I myself have over 350 episodes available for you to choose from, all related to sex, bodies, intimacy, relationships here on the Pleasure Zone. So also, one of the things that I offer in my life is I work with bodies, with different things in terms of movement work, somatic body work. I also do energy work, and I do something called radionics, which is a pretty wild, far out, and interesting type of healing method that uses technology as well as frequencies. So you can be anywhere in the world to experience radionics. So that's a little reminder for those of you listening that, hey, there's more to me than just my cuteness, but my cuteness helps, right? So there you go. The big questions for you tonight are wondering. I'm just in this wondering mode, as if you've ever actually been in an experience where your mind is saying no, 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 but your body is saying yes, 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 yes. It can be so weird. It can be such a weird thing. Sometimes our bodies react to stimuli, and our mind is being logical and saying, no, that is not a good idea, or that's a no, because it could be going against your sensibilities or your morality. Yet your body is saying yes all the way. It's weird, isn't it? I'm going to give you a fine example of how that's showing up in my life in different ways, but I'm going to start with a really simple one to just not scare the crap out of you all. So one of the simplest ones is when my mind says no and my body says yes. I was on an airplane. This was 8 years ago, and I was with a friend. We were flying to Vancouver, and on the airplane there was a commercial playing for steak, and I had not had meat in my diet for, at that point, probably 16, 20 years, something like that. So it was really weird because at the moment, my body said yes to steak, and my mind said no, 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 no. My mind went into an explanation of how proteins work. My mind explained to me how all the things I know about animal proteins and how hard it is to break them down if you don't have the enzymes. My mind went into philosophy about different things like the unkindness to animals and how animals are raised and how cruel it can be if animals are raised in these different situations where it's like the different farming practices that are completely unkind to the animals. So my mind was going in 35 different directions while my body was saying yes. And that is where conflict begins. So when your mind is saying no and your body is saying yes, And it can go the other way around where your mind says yes and your body says no. It can go both ways. But we're going to start today with when your mind says no and your body says yes. Now, for those of you who have ever in your life experienced anything where you've also had that conflict, you might be still experiencing a residual effect. So, if your mind has said no to you and your body says yes, your mind includes the neurological system of your brain, which has all these neural connections, synapses, all these things connect. And when we have different experiences and different stimuli, there are new neural connections that are created. So during these different experiences, new neural connections are created. Also, different parts of the brain are stimulated. And depending on what's going on, your body might be having a brain reaction that's a neurological reaction, that's a hormonal reaction, that is sending things like dopamine to your body when in fact your body is feeling violated. Now, it might not even be as extreme as violated. It might be, where, for example, it could be where somebody is touching you and you really don't like them, or you get like the creep vibe off of them, but yet your body is craving touch so much that it might say, your body might be giving all the indications of yes, where your mind is like, no. And so I know in my life I've encountered many a creep. I've had the gift of creeps in my life, and I'm sure every single one of you listening out there has had the gift of at least one creep, or it could be your wife, it could be your husband, it could be your lover, and they irk you, right? So it could be anything where your brain is saying no and your body is giving all the indications of yes. Wow, what kind of a conflict does that leave? This can be something that absolutely occurs if your body has been violated. By violated, I mean all forms of violation, like rape of all kind, sexual abuse of all kind. So your body, for example, if as a child your body had been stimulated by some pervert who is into pedophilia, your body doesn't know that it's reacting and giving off the hormones that would be pleasure hormones, and your mind is being tormented by, why did this person that you trusted do this to you? Because ultimately, for a lot of children, it's either people that they know, either close family, friends, or family, unless, of course, they have been kidnapped or something to that effect, and that still goes on, of course, so that's possible too. But what ends up happening is that your brain now has this neural connection that anytime, and this is going to get really wacky, but anytime a creep comes near you, your body will also be stimulated in a certain similar way. So it's a trauma, right? So your body has been traumatized. Your soul ultimately has been traumatized. All trauma has residual effect in the soul like a cloud. And when that trauma has not been resolved, those conflicts actually create really interesting things in the body. It'll create all kinds of havoc, health issues. There's amazing work done by a man who died a few years ago. His name was Dr. Hammer, and he worked on something called the new medicine that's been renamed recently to organic new medicine. He looked at things like conflicts that had occurred in a person's life that had not been resolved, and how they manifested themselves in the body as different diseases or ailments. So it has actually been scientifically studied. He did studies with over 50,000 brain scans. You can look up his work, Dr. Hammer, Hamer. Look up his work. He was scrutinized. He was judged. He was taken through the rakes, taken through the coals. He was really harassed in his life over his work, but his work is indisputable. It is absolutely, time and again, shows up as true. And he did, of course, with all good science, always open the question to look at it again and find anything that had discrepancies in it. So he did have some discrepancies where some diseases were brought on by um, chemical influences in the body. So whether that was medication, drugs, or whatever that happened to be. But he did state that if there were no chemicals that were interfering, that these things stood to be quite, like, he found accuracy in them. So amazing work by an amazing man, all about trauma, all about when your mind is probably saying no and your body is saying yes, or vice versa. And that conflict that occurs, that discrepancy between the body and mind connection, it can leave you with horrible things in your life. We just for a moment look at if a child has been at any time violated, whatever age that happens to be. And that child can be even a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old. I'm not going to limit the child because we're all children, really. And if you feel alone and if you feel like you don't have anybody having your back, you can often feel as if you are a child walking around and you don't have, some of the adulting skills maybe that are required, maybe because there has been trauma, again, that has been unresolved, that's been sitting. When there's that trauma in that body, and in that soul, what occurs is we start to have fears that surround us. So imagine there's a trauma, a sexual trauma, for example, then the fear may come up around relationships or touch or anything like that. Even if it's a subconscious trauma that you're not aware of, there can still be residual fears that show up. And those fears then also have a stimuli in our body and they have a reaction. So when we see them again, they may be fear, but they may be so familiar that we don't recognize them as alarm bells going off. We're like, oh, maybe I'm excited. But actually, your body is giving you maybe a different signal because the signals are getting crossed with the dopamine rising and the different hormones that are shooting off in your body, that you're thinking, oh, I must be feeling good. But in fact, you could be feeling fear. You could be having some adrenaline kicking in to get you out of the way, but it's still a rush. So you don't know the difference. Because why? Because your body is still running on that trauma and the memory of that trauma, and it doesn't know that it's actually giving you alarm bells to say, get away. So your mind is saying no, but your body is saying yes. Why? Because the neurological response and sometimes the hormonal response, they're just not doing the same thing. They're at odds with each other. Like parents fighting, right? they're not saying the same thing and there's conflict arising. So the big question when your mind has said no and your body has said yes, and that conflict is going on in your body, what do you do with it? What does it do to you? So one of the main things is to remember that those traumas, they are residual in your soul, which is also in your body, and there is a need to have it released. And there are many different ways to release it. If you absolutely have no idea and you would like to have some ideas, please connect with me. Send me a message you can send me a message through my website, or you can send me a message through social media, especially Facebook and Instagram. But please tell me why you're writing to me, or I will not respond. If you're just like, hi, just say, hi, I listened to your show about when your mind says no and your body says yes, and you mentioned that there are some ways that you can work with people to help them get rid of the trauma that's sitting there. I will be giving you some fine examples of some things you can do on your own just to get started, but we'll be doing that after the commercial. So in the meantime, just know that that stuff is probably sitting there. It's an unconscious thing that's going on in your body. That trauma is still hanging out. It's in your soul. It's in your body. And it's creating fears. As a result, those fears create false beliefs. Once you have false beliefs, you also start to create a facade about yourself because you don't know who you are. So you have to put up a facade. Try and just make yourself feel comfortable. And then what kicks in with that facade is an addiction. The addiction isn't always what you think it is. The addiction absolutely can be something that comes from a thought pattern that's repetitive, like always trying to help others and never trying to help people who never want the help. Like that's an addiction. It doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol or eating or sex. There are many different kinds. I bet you, if you're listening to this show, you have at least one of them because even though I've been working on myself for over 5 years with different therapists, with different energy workers, courses, classes, intensives, and learning all the time, still have stuff to clear. And I bet you do too. And I'd be happy to work with you doing that. So for those of you who are listening and you'd like to know more, please stick around. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're talking about some of the conflicts that might actually prevent you from having pleasure. All of this stuff that I talk about on this show either is about tapping into and enhancing the pleasure that already exists in your life, and some of these shows are all about looking at when you can't experience pleasure, or there's been trauma, or there's been other things going on, that we need to look at those. We need to resolve them so that pleasure can exist. I bet that for a lot of people who have experienced trauma, whether it's sexual, whether it's been abuse, or anything like that, I bet that at times you might be thinking, how could I ever experience pleasure? Like your brain will, for a very long time, on reminding you through visuals or information or different things that this stuff occurred. And our brains are so incredibly wise that they sometimes are smart enough to protect us, actually forget or not cognitively remember that these traumas have occurred. Sometimes bringing up traumas for somebody, so if you're working with them, if you happen to be, therapy, sometimes bringing up traumas that somebody is not even aware of can be incredibly alarming. So working with a professional, working with somebody who knows how to guide you through all of the different things that may come up for you, that, when these sort of traumas come to your awareness, they can be incredibly conflicting. And if you don't have people supporting you that know what they're doing, it can create even more havoc in trauma in your. So I'll give you an example. When I was in my 20s and I started doing a lot of my own healing work, not my own, I was going to people. One of the women that I went to for healing and for therapy was really, really insistent that I needed to look at some kind of sexual abuse that had occurred. I didn't remember any sexual abuse at that point. My body wasn't violated in the way that I remember until I was 25. And she was insistent and insistent. So I dug deep and I was like trying to find any kind of anything that would have bothered me. And what it really came down to was, now I know this. I know this now because she was not experienced enough, maybe didn't have the training, maybe needed to feel important. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter. But a lot of it was her own stuff that she was projecting onto me. That's a side note. And then the other bit of it is that I really had a need to be right. So that was another part. And when some things did arise, it actually created a lot of conflict for me. It wasn't for me personally, but what ended up happening was that the memories that I was having, they weren't even, well, they were just more of like people I knew who were, I don't know, maybe what they actually had was like sexual energy in my presence, but as like a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old, I didn't understand that, so I took them to be perverts because the person that was working with me was very insistent it must have happened. I thought, well, and then for many times after, I thought, well, you know what? After I stopped seeing her and I was seeing somebody else, I realized that maybe not this at that time, maybe it wasn't this lifetime, but it was another lifetime. And then the irony was, I walked right into a space, body was violated. Weird. I mention this because, heck, it's been 22 years since that. 22 years almost to the day. We're talking 22 years ago, 12 days ago. So it's one of those things where bodies have memories and they do have anniversaries and they do remember this stuff. And it does come up and it does need to be healed. And for quite a while after, I can't even explain it, but for quite a while after, I have to say that I don't know that I trusted my body at all. And I had to learn new ways of being in relationship, and I had to have and learn new ways of being with myself as a sexual being, and I'm still learning new ways to do that. And I'm tapping into things where I can be more empowered, and I'm tapping into things where I know that I can ask for what I desire, and I can also be able to say no, or I'm able to have conversation, and I'm able to bond. Really cool because prior to any of that, I didn't really have healthy bonding skills. Looking at my bonding skills were all about what my body was saying and nothing about what my mind was saying. Mind is really, really logical. And if I had let my mind rule my life, it would have been a very different life. But for the most part, my body and really truly my loins ran a lot of my life. And they can. Now, this is where you can get in touch with your mind, and your genitals can actually be in harmony. There are a lot of different ways to get them in harmony. Tantric breathing is a fantastic way to get your mind and your genitals in harmony. 2 different breathing techniques. So that's one method, is definitely breathing techniques. So whether you're doing tantric breathing, somatic breathing, which is quite tantric in a way, whether you're doing Tai Chi breathing, Qigong breathing, or if you're doing breathing techniques that are like Wim Hof, because they're really great for different neurological responses as well. And, so many different breathing techniques. One of the very first breathing techniques I learned was in university. I was taking a course on transpersonal psychology, and the breathing techniques that we tapped into, I think our teacher took us through it, or there was a recording, I can't remember. It was was all about holotropic breath work. Really fascinating stuff. So there's so many different kinds and so many different ways to use that to connect to your body. Now, last week we talked a lot about bonding. I did an episode all about the benefits of slow sex. It involves so much penetration. It's not top of the line thing that's required. And some methods from slow sex were really what helped me to be able to bond again, be able to bond with people. But again, my body had such violence done to it that any like speck of kindness, it was the equivalent of giving somebody in the desert who'd been walking through the desert for like 13 days with no water, and they have one possible day. No, I think you can only go 3 days without water. So 2 days without water, it's 14 days without food, but 3 days without water. So you're walking, it's been 2.5 days without water, and you're like on your last leg, and somebody gives you water. It's that kind of nourishing. And for me, touch and sex are like vitamins. So when my body was so deprived, not just deprived, violated, and then deprived, and then violated again, like violated in different ways again. Long and short of it, violated, well, just really ugly sex for quite a while. So when all that's occurring, and you're being belittled, and you're being shamed, and blah, 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 any ounce of kindness usually gets you, you're getting reward. Yeah, so it's sad, right? We want those rewards, and our body reacts to rewards. Yeah, so we will respond to the reward system quite fast. But one of the things to note is if you are responding to rewards really quickly, like if any little scrap or any little crumb gets you going, absolutely you can utilize that and grow it and expand that energy. But if you're surviving on crumbs, then there's still a lot of trauma going on in your body that it's just going, okay, all I deserve is crumbs. Well, I can survive on crumbs. As long as I have crumbs. Like if you were locked up and not fed for a while and somebody gives you crumbs, oh, thank God they gave me crumbs. Then that's when your captor becomes your friend, right? And that whole Stockholm syndrome goes on. You can have Stockholm syndrome from people who are emotionally trapping you as well, and that can be a response in so many different ways. But I'll just call it the emotional Stockholm syndrome rather than just physically being trapped. But there's the emotionally being trapped as well, and all of it's where you just feel blocked. But then all of a sudden, the captor is the one that you defend and fall in love with. So we're weird and wacky. Our minds are incredible, and they are set up to allow us to survive in any situation. So if we have to respond to our captors in a way that keeps us alive, we will fall in love with them. And we'll do whatever it takes. And that energy becomes familiar, and we find it again. And we find it again because it's so familiar. The neurological system is aware of it. It's like, oh, ding, ding, ding. I'm aware of that stimuli. That's a familiar stimuli. last time that stimuli occurred, I created this neural pathway, and that neural pathway gave me this information. This information was sent through my body and some different hormones released, and now this is every time I'm in the presence of this energy, I will have this reaction until you change it, because it's changeable. It's always changeable. You can always aim for greater. You can always aim for kinder. You can always aim for where your mind and your body are in sync with each other. We're going to talk more about the mind and body being in sync with each other. We'll do some different particular things that are going to be super simple. We'll do that after this next break. So just be prepared for that. We're going to do some breathing. We'll do some meditating. We're going to do some physical things that you can do for your body as well, just to get your body back into harmony and alignment, get you back on track. They're going to be easy. There, of course, are more complex ones that we can do and that can be added onto, but these are ones you can do for yourself to get started. And then by all means, get a hold of me and we can work a program for that. So that is the plan and that is the target. The target is to get your mind and your body on track and on the same track together moving forward. You are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. So in this segment, I'd like to share with you some of the tips and tools for being able to get your mind and body into some of the things that I've done over the days and ages is learning some different tools of kinesiology. So kinesiology is where your body has muscle memory, muscle awareness as well. You can measure the different things. When you actually study kinesiology, which I did not, it's far more complex than that. But in terms of what I'm discussing kinesiology for today, it's a very simple method which includes muscle testing. So muscle testing is one way to learn how to get your body and mind in sync. But sometimes we're not in harmony with each other, or we're not in harmony with our bodies and selves. I took a class this weekend with, his name was Dr. Jin, and I don't remember his first name, but maybe his first name is Dr. Jin. Anyway, through the USPA, which is the United States Psychotronic Association, they have amazing classes once a month, and for like $30 a year, dive into all of their amazing different classes that have to do with things like energy work, quantum physics, making all kinds of things beyond our imagination when it comes to medicine, way beyond the different things that you hear about in the news. It's like far out amazing stuff that people are testing, working with, and using all over the place. One of the things that I learned this weekend, which I really thought was a great one, were some I am statements. For when you are feeling like there is conflict between your body and your mind, you can do a little statement called, and this is how he worded it. So Dr. Jin had one that was the rethinking statement. And the rethinking statement goes a little something like this: I am rethinking, rethink I am. And you do that 3 times, then you pause, then you do it 6 times, then you pause, then you do it 9 times. It's the 369 for those of you who are aware of energy work and different things to do with the 369 energies that Nikola Tesla talked about. If not, this is not, that's like a very long conversation, so I won't be talking about the basics behind this 369 right now. However, let's play with the rethinking to get your body, your mind kind of back on track. I'm rethinking, I rethink, I am. Thinking, I think I am. Rethinking, I rethink, I am. Rethinking, I rethink, I am. Rethinking, I rethink, I am. I rethink, rethinking, I rethink, rethinking, I rethink, I am. The doctor's name is Dr. Jerry Jin. I'm rethinking, rethink, I am. That one was 6 or 9. I'm rethinking. I'm rethinking, 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 rethinking. And then you start to become aware, and it starts to shift some of the thought and gets your body to kind of flip the energy. So what we're doing is we're creating a harmony in your mind and body so that your mind and body are in harmony. It's a really simple way to get your mind and body in harmony, to be rethinking. And then you can state, like I'm going to state right now, you can state and repeat this as well, is you're acknowledging who you are. So I am Milica Anastasia Jelenic, I am. I am Milica Anastasia Jelenic, I am. I am Milica Anastasia Jelenic, I am. There are other affirming things that you can be saying as well, like I'm inviting thoughts within thoughts to rethink within me. Inviting thoughts within thoughts to rethink within. I'm inviting thoughts within thoughts to. So there's so many methods. That one was my latest and greatest fun one that I learned from Dr. Jin. And it's interesting. So sorry if that got quiet. Maybe the energy was shifting, but whatever that was, it can be helpful. So try it out. There's no harm in trying it, right? So some of the other ones that I'd like to do too are actually touching your body and doing breathing. If there has been trauma, especially sexual trauma, touch your genitals for the sexual trauma. If the trauma was in the breasts, touch your breasts. If your trauma was in the breasts, end, say, in your anus or in your vagina or your vulva or your clitoris or your penis, or if you don't identify with any of those, then whatever you would call that, put your hand on those areas and start to breathe in. And we're going to just, to get reconnected, to have not a confusion, sometimes you need to let go whatever's sitting in there. Sometimes it's going to be a scream. There can be a primal sound. And sometimes those primal sounds are a little bit tricky to get to and through on your own. And I actually work with people who do this with you either online or in person, where you come, visit me, get on my massage table, but I can also do this with you absolutely online via video as well. And we get into some deep sounds, deep guttural sounds that are primal, almost like primal screaming, but a little different. So when I started learning energy work about 25 years ago, it is 25 years this year that I started learning Reiki, the teacher that I had also learned from this amazing woman. Her name was Eleanor from the U.S. And she had this crazy, amazing capacity where she could touch a person's toe or their leg, and she could find the spot in the body where the sound was locked, and their body would unlock sound. And she was like 80-something when she died, so she'd been doing that work for years. So she really mastered that work, and I'm still working on mastering that. I find that work fascinating, that you can find that spot, and then that body will release the trauma. But if you know where it is yourself, you can also put your hand there. Sometimes it might be a surprising spot. It could be your belly button, but meanwhile you might have been like, but somebody touched my breast, but it's actually your belly button that's got that energy in it. So wherever it happens to be, find that. And you can start with, I don't necessarily think that you might like up into the primal scream right away, but if you can, go for it. If you can't, one of the things that you can do is a breathing that sounds almost like crying, where you breathe in, you breathe in for 2 and you breathe out for 1. And you can breathe in for 2 through your nose, 1 out through your mouth. If you've ever noticed, the little kids when they cry and they get really active on the crying, it can sometimes sound like that. It can sound like right? It's like a very normal sound for deep sadness, and we can mimic that in the body with breathing. So that's another way that you can get back kind of harmonizing whatever's going on in your brain with your body, so your body isn't sending you like, no, we're all good. No, your body is actually asking you, telling you that there's some deep sadness. Your brain's going, no, there's something off here. And your body's like, yeah, no, we're fine. We just need some touch. So not necessarily. So get some of that breathing out, get some of those tears out, get some of that sadness out, get some of that trauma out. I also really like the work that's TRE, which is trauma release exercises, and you can find them on YouTube. You can also find experts in trauma release to walk you through and take you through different trauma release exercises. That can also help you get back to having your body and your mind connected again. One of the first things, though, that happens when our mind-body connection goes off is we do stop breathing. We often just stop breathing because there's a fear that kicks in. For that trauma that leads to fear, that leads to false beliefs, that leads to facades, that leads to addictions, behaviors that are not necessarily our best choices. Yeah, those. So when we get into that, some of those better breathing techniques, I use so many different variations, but I do like somatic breathing. I do like holotropic breath work. I do like transformational breath work. Any one of those is great. And that really simple one that I was just showing you with it can either be in for 2, out. It can be like that sad, and just let your body do it. In, out. So, how's your body feel? Are you rethinking? I am rethinking. Rethink I am. I am rethinking. Rethink I am. I am. So if you're not familiar with the I am, there is lots of work written on the I am. It used to not be so much of it, the I am. I am that I am. Anyway, I can't remember who the authors of the I am work are. They're out there. You just see out I am, and you're going to find lots of work related to that. It is now, as Jerry Jin was teaching us on the weekend, is a method he's just started recently using for harmonizing his body. He uses pendulums a lot for his work. He does amazing work with pendulums, and he will reharmonize bodies using pendulums and create different harmonizing frequencies, the 369, but also using the 369. The 369, as in there are frequencies that are 369 frequencies, and there are different symbols that are in 369. Neutralize things and to harmonize things, and it's something that has been talked about for a very, very long time. And it's also something that you see in sacred geometry, in numerology. There are numbers that are consistently used over. So cool work. All right. Definitely taking a different angle than I thought it was going to. So for all of you who are listening and you're like, I just started processing stuff while I was listening to you. Cool. You might be. You just might be processing some stuff. If you need some assistance to get through it, just let me know. Connect. Work through it. Find me on my website, milicajelenic.com. That's MILICAJELENIC.com. You can also find me on different things, Instagram or Facebook. Those are my main ones that I'm on, but by all means, you can find me on places and whatever else. Let's take some deep breaths. Let's do some of that breathing during the commercial. In, out, as we go about our day. I'm aware of your body as you're doing that, but not if you're driving, because you might start to have a meltdown. Do it at home when you're quiet in your own time. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. So tonight we've been talking about the mind and the body connection. And how many times our minds will be saying no, 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 but our bodies might be saying yes, yes, yes. Let's just take it out of the seriousness that we've had for the last, 35 or more minutes about releasing trauma. And look at some of the interesting and fun ways we might have actually done this. I mentioned earlier in the show traveling to Vancouver with a friend where my mind was saying no, 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 but my body was saying yes, yes, yes to steak. It was so funny. I didn't actually eat the steak because it was on a commercial. It wasn't actually available. And my mind couldn't get over that either. So on that occasion, I did not listen to my body, but it was a fascinating experiment. So what I did do is I asked my body to receive all the nutrition that it could get energetically from that steak. And I know this is going to sound totally outrageous and insane. However, I actually felt full. Good thing, because that is a 5-hour flight. So play with it. The world is mysterious and wonderful, and there are quantum levels of things that we don't even understand and probably never will. Because the more we know, the less we know. And that's just the coolest thing about it. So when we look at some of the things that might be like your mind is saying no, 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 but your body's saying yes, yes, yes. Today I saw this fantastic Mercedes in a parking lot, and it was like a 1970s, probably early 70s, like Mercedes. And it was just stunning in beautiful shape, and it was like perfect condition. It was it was like a convertible. I'm pretty sure it was like it was a convertible. I can't remember the kind of Mercedes it was, but it was just a beautiful shape, and my body was like, yes. And my mind is so freaking funny and logical. It started calculating. That car's got to be worth about $120,000. That's a collector's item. That's like the value of half my property, or no, like 1/5, because my property value went up. My brain was like, no, that's not logical. My body was like, yes, that is your car. So funny, because there can be such a difference between them. And for this week in particular, I'd really like for you to just notice, maybe take some notes of all the different times where your mind says no, and your body says, oh yes. And it could be for anything. It could be for food. It could be for loverships. It could be for going somewhere where your body's like, yes, and your mind's like, no. Like, I currently have a plan of fun action that I have a target for in the next few weeks, and my body is all yes, and my mind is like, that is the most illogical, crazy thing. Like, what are you thinking? So, whatever. I'm actually going to follow my body on this one, as it involves my kid, and my kid's body is all yes on it as well. And we are going to go totally illogical, totally following the body on this one, because technically it's not going to harm us. It was more the logic of financially. Does this make sense? And sometimes when it comes to things like finances, they don't always make sense. But what's cool is that our bodies will actually know. And sometimes when it comes to sex, our bodies actually know who will bring us to healing. But you got to remember that whenever there's been a violation or trauma, and your body is still running on trauma, you are not going to get accurate information. So I have a lot of people that come to me and they're like, but I can't get a read on my body. I'm like, oh, very interesting, because when you can't really get a clear, distinct read on your body, chances are you are still running a lot of trauma stories in your body and in your soul. And so you're getting false information, right? The fear, false beliefs, like false information, facades. So really looking at breaking it down so that you can just actually start to release some of those fears and move forward, because that's the plan of action, right? So this week, again, keep note of when your mind is saying no and your body says yes. And it's not that you have to follow through on anything. It's just to notice how many times there's discrepancies between the body and the mind. Or when your mind says yes, your body's like, no. Keep note of those, because bodies do give us information that's different than our minds, and we do need to get them back in sync with each other. Meditation is one of the best and easiest ways. Tantric breathing, excellent. Somatic breathing, excellent. And movement of any kind, honestly, will get your body on track. I like backwards walking particularly. Join me next week.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.